to me, youth washing seems as if companies or businesses want to seem like young people are at their core, or they're doing their work for the benefit of young people, and they're portraying that externally and publicly, but actually internally they might not actually be hearing the voices of young people when they might be claiming to know all about young people. Yeah, so it ends up kind of being a bit of a facade, and it not being very genuine in terms of what they're claiming to do for young people, is kind of how I see it. What about you?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It makes me sort of feel quite uncomfortable in a way, because a lot of the time young people might be spoken to or used, as it were, um, by businesses, or by for marketing means, or by governments even, or for people who are in positions of power within society. But actually, a lot of the time, their power isn't necessarily directly linked to that. So young people aren't necessarily the bulk of consumers when they're buying stuff from shops or from businesses. They can't all have the right to vote yet, but yet they're sort of being used as a without their will in a way sometimes, especially when those organizations are sort of placing young people at the forefront of whatever they're campaigning or marketing about, but actually not listening to the real things that young people are concerned about or want to speak about. It's much more about using them for marketing or for that purpose. Yeah, and it makes me think about sort of my childhood, and thinking about when people in government or businesses or from different areas of society are sort of talking about, oh, this is what young people think, and feeling really misrepresented or not heard even, of no, I don't think that, or yes, I do, but you shouldn't have the right to say that. Me and my generation should be saying that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like the thing I hate most in life is generalizations. They just annoy me so much, and I feel like that's why it's so powerful to hear those individual stories and hear that genuine youth voice, and hear from people who might have experiences that are relevant, or, emotions that are relevant. I think storytelling in itself is so powerful, but when you have that authenticity and you're actually coming from a place of genuine care for young people, then I think there's nothing more powerful really than hearing those stories, and not making those generalizations and sweeping statements that aren't generally true.
Yeah, and interesting you talk about sort of authenticity of, I guess, youth washing, greenwashing, all these ways that we're being made more aware of the fact that what people are saying might actually not be true, or they might be sort of saying things in a misguiding way, is really feels quite a new thing to be challenging or thinking about as an individual in society, that you want to be able to trust the things you're being told rather than question their validity or their accuracy. But then there's that sort of interesting nuance now of the voice of young people being recognised as really important, but still maybe the bit of questioning about whether it's authentic youth voice, and actually what does that mean. And a lot of the time, having the freedom and having the sort of trust in young people to say what they want to say, that's, I guess, quite a scary proposition sometimes for people to feel, actually we want to hear from young people, but we want them to sort of say this, or we want them to do this, rather than actually hearing directly from them as individuals about what they care about, what they're concerned about, what they want their world to look like in their futures, because ultimately it's their world that we're all living in and that we're making the changes to, and they'll have to live with it for longer than all of the rest of us. So it's interesting, that sort of balance, and seeing how, I guess, we can all probably think of examples of when young people have been really misrepresented, and other examples where they've actually been represented in a much better way. But even then, it's still questioning whether that's really authentic, which is, it seems very cynical, and I don't want to feel
Yeah,
overly critical, but
downward
just,
spiral.
yeah, exactly. It's just, but I guess it's holding, all of us need to hold ourselves to account, to be always pushing for even more authenticity, and I guess just listening to young people more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think something that we're both working on a lot at the moment is our Transform Our World Youth Summit. And I know from my side that's been something that's been really exciting to bring together loads of amazingly inspiring young people who have CVs and experiences way longer than mine, which is amazing. But just to bring those authentic voices together in a really kind of open, safe space to kind of just say what they want to say and speak up for what they believe in. And I think in particular, this kind of conversation is making me really look forward to our session titled "Is Power on Our Side?" And I know with that, we'll have some amazing young people giving their views on youth washing and other topics like greenwashing, and hearing from young people themselves as to what they think about these tactics used by those in power, which I think would be really interesting, because I think a lot of the time it is adults and older people who might be giving their opinions on youth washing and greenwashing. But actually, I think hearing that youth voice on this topic is equally valuable.
Definitely, yeah. And it's been interesting working on this youth summit as well, reflecting on previous youth summits as well, of like the need to always continuing to even more listen to young people, that young people, our Transform Our World Youth Ambassadors, were a key part in establishing what our theme would be this year, looking at what power means as a concept and who holds power and how do they use that power. And that has really driven the whole plan of the summit. It's driven the sort of conversations that we're having, and then it's driven who we're talking to and who we're listening to for that summit. That's just so important to being an event for young people. There's no point loads of us as adults deciding stuff and then saying to young people, watch this, and then actually it not representing at all where they're at. And so that's been a really interesting sort of thing to work through, is actually just being driven by young people and what they want to learn from this as a resource, as something that can bring young people together as well, which is really, really exciting.